It's been a while since we've done. Well, I'll start that. Well, it's been a while since we've sat down and had the time to go through a bit of a download, but we are back, featuring Bonsai. Bonsai's here to join us. Interesting topic today. We've been thinking about our tour. It's not long since we've been back. Whole month on the road is always insightful into throwing some thoughts and reflections. And we're going to focus on a particular topic today, which is the big old topic of avoidance. It's almost a curse word in some areas of the dog training world now. Why is it such a poignant word now in terms of when we're thinking about training and living with our dogs?
I think that management, really, what it started out to mean, is necessary. It's a good thing. It's just that we can plateau there, and in our plateauing, we can become habituated. So we get normalized to the negative things as well as the positive things. We start to just think this is normal behavior, and you've been there with your own dog.
And then your brain does the really awful thing of going, I'm going to give you some dopamine for these avoiding and hiding. And so now I feel safe and good to live in this headspace, which is fun.
And so also there's the underlying fear of what might happen. And to the point where when we were working on, it was very important for us to have the humans, the people, the owners of the dogs, work on themselves and if they've got any fears and phobias, especially around things that have happened. So obviously you've been bitten in the past, which has given you a healthy respect, but at the time it wasn't so healthy, but you didn't know that. So you couldn't have held Dachshund on your lap because all dogs, you'd generalize biting to all dogs, but you didn't recognize that until I asked you to do a set of exercises, and then we recognized there was something missing. And so when people come onto the retreats with us, we can see that the time they've spent not doing something and living in avoidant behaviors can actually grow fear. As you say, it's reinforcing. And then asking them to come out of that comfort zone and step into this world where we're going, we've got this safety net here. It's okay for us to, not just jump in a bush when we see a dog, but actually walk past it with this new set of skills we're giving you. That's huge. It can be, really releasing a lot of emotion for people because this is like brand new. Something so simple for us to take a reactive dog and walk past on a dog just to practice body language has this profound effect on the human that has to do it because they're thinking of all the things that could potentially go wrong.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. Obviously, I've kind of been there, and I think that the people that have come along to the workshops on the tour and the people that tend to come and check out what we're about and be part of the community are the people that are ready to go on and lean into the process. And I'm okay with a little bit of discomfort, and I know it's going to be hard for me and it'll maybe reveal some things. But I think for a while I was really struggling to understand the kind of corner of the internet that's like, well, why would you not just live in avoidance and management? And that would be the kindest thing to do. But I think actually when you've lived with a dog, and I have a very analytical brain, and I think it's quite helpful for me to be able to process things and determine what's best. But it's so interesting to then have that perception of, oh, well, if we just avoid it and we just manage it, when actually the only real next step for Atlas was I kept trying to avoid and I kept trying to manage, but eventually there would be times where that failed. And I think that everyone that we've spoken to, you get to a point where avoidance and management always fails. We're not perfect. We can't preempt a door blowing open or dropping a piece of chicken on the floor and the consequences.
I've become much more aware and tolerant now. I'm someone that I'm very good at chess. I can see several moves ahead. Okay. And so for me, when people have managed so long, 6 months, there's been no bites.
Yeah.
Everyone's been safe.
Yeah.
We've gone on holiday, we've left the dog with someone. Oh my God, there's a bite. So the assumption that just because we haven't seen a behavior for 6 months means that it's not there anymore. First of all, that relies heavily on it's just about surface behavior. We're not thinking about the dog's emotional responses or how he's associated feelings or whatever the trigger was. So we're just going, we haven't seen the behavior, therefore it must have disappeared. And then we all get a shock when the dog does this thing because the habitat's changed. And the dog has gone into a new situation where all the rules have changed and the old rules don't apply and the management's been lifted and therefore the behavior surfaces and everyone's so shocked. And I had huge intolerance for this because we're putting people in danger. Kids are in danger, you know. For a while there, I was getting men balked every week with bites to kids' faces and just unnecessary, and really frustrated and angry at people. And now, obviously, working with you the last few years, I'm understanding now that what happens is our bodies live on cortisol and adrenaline to get by.
I think I was just literally topped full up of those two at one point.
Yeah. And so we're in chronic stress, but we're not recognizing that we are. And we're doing, you know, the best job we can do to get by. And we're not actually thinking about what's going to happen ahead. We're just going, we're in survival right now.
And I think the really sad thing about that is that if we live in that state, it's then the dog that suffers. Because we go, oh, it came out of the blue. We didn't know where it come. Oh, we've seen it time and time again. We've seen this kind of, oh, well, they haven't done it for ages. It must be cocker rage syndrome, or there must now be a brain issue or something that's happened. Whereas actually, we're all getting so good. I was the same. It was only when you started asking different questions and I actually had the knowledge to look back on where did these behaviors begin. It went from a year to 6 months to actually the day that I brought him home eventually. I was going,
well, I think the first time you said it was 10 months old to me when I asked you when it first started. Because, yeah, again, if you're in survival mode, you're just going, well, because you had everything, right? You had separation issues, you had resource guarding, you had human aggression, don't touch me,
but dog reactivity,
all the things.
all those things.
And no one has said to you, these things are all related. Separation anxiety doesn't exist on its own. Rage doesn't exist on its own. They all come from somewhere. And the very base point is what we want to be thinking about. And so it's really difficult because, you know, I go in with let's do the very base point, which is partnership and communication before we even work on this. And people go, well, either I don't have enough patience because you're not understanding that I want to work on this thing.
Yeah.
Or I don't have enough time because I want to work on this thing.
Or this feels really personal. How dare you tell me this is a meal show? That was really hard to hear. And it is hard, but I think it comes back to that choose your hard, right? Do you want the life where you're constantly managing and avoiding and trying to hang on to that? I certainly didn't have a nice time in that space. We were surviving at best. But I can understand now that it takes a special kind of person to be able to go, I'm willing to accept that I'm part of the problem. I'm ready to understand that actually there has to be a way through. And I think that's the bit that you're really good at, is to go, well, here's the way that we get through it. And I think it's really tricky because we're living in a society at the minute where a great proportion of the people out there are very happy to go, here's a report to tell you what the problem is, full stop.
Well, and remember that behaviorism is the science of observable behaviors. And they haven't, most people who've, you know, come from the theory of this haven't lived haven't lived with the cases, haven't dealt with, you know, hundreds of dogs that either needed drugs or didn't need drugs, and all the different ways that you can approach an individual. So when I see an individual, I'm looking at the dog, I'm looking at the human, I'm looking at their connection with each other. I'm coming up with a path of what needs to be done to help that dog. The problem is I'm also looking at the human to go, what state of emotions are you in to help? Because sometimes that's going to be blocked. I can't do the thing that I need to do with the dog, because this dog needs exposure and you're not able to cope with that. Or you're still bush diving, right? As an example. And so, yeah, and I think, you know, you came up with a motto the other day, we're for anyone, not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it sums up beautifully what's going on. So not everyone is ready yet to look in the mirror and say, that was what we have, and that's what's going on. And one of the things that I often, I don't try to go on social media to speak to other people now and get into arguments and comments, but one of the things that I try and get them to do if they're struggling and I see something or someone's asked me something out with our circle is to say, look at the dog in a different environment, put the dog somewhere else. If the dog behaves differently, then it's like this sleep startle, right? Sleep startle is not a thing, but it's a thing in circles. Some circles that, you know, it's a whole disorder in its own. Yeah. But if your dog is sleep startling only to you or only to certain people and not to everybody, not to dogs, there's targeted. There's a reason for that. And if your dog is not doing the same behaviors that you normally see when it's in a different environment, then it's the environment. And that's brilliant, because that means that something always brain.
Yeah.
We just need to change the environment, which includes everything in it, including the humans, the human emotions, hormones can play a huge part. There's so many factors that we're not told about, because behaviorism is the science of observable behaviors. It's not about the next step. It's not about the underlying causes of that. It's not about bringing things together to say your separation anxiety actually has got some levels of, the dog can also be touched. Why is touch relevant to separation anxiety? Well, how much time do you have? Well, big.
And so I guess it's that realization, isn't it, that we're looking for the right people, not all the people. And actually being able to go, we have got this really exciting opportunity, but we're not saying it's going to be easy. We're not saying it's going to be simple. But actually, if you can be curious, I think it always comes back to curiosity when we're thinking about the kind of person that we want to engage with and who can get the most from it.
And also people that have got, it's sad to say actually, because it breaks my heart when people have spent, thousands of pounds. I think one of our clients has spent £10,000 on celebrity dog trainers.
Yeah.
And it breaks the heart because they're the best clients, because they go, oh my goodness, this has been missing.
Yeah.
But they've also had to go through all that. And then we've got quite a lot to unpick from that as well.
Yeah. There's many different approaches and bits that they've tried.
But if you come to us for the first time and you're not aware what else is going on out there, you would think this was normal.
Yeah. Oh, because it's the bit that makes sense, right? So that's what we hear the most, is that this is the very logical that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been told to do things. You started that with me as well. You said, you've always got answers for me. I never had answers. I was just told what to do without understanding why I was doing it.
Well, and I think your gut or whatever it is that's really good at being able to go, something doesn't feel right here, and actually having the confidence to listen to that and go, either I'm doing something that doesn't sit right, or the opposite of that. It's been, Jess Williams is a great example of this. It's been months, it's been years. We're still not seeing the progress.
Yeah.
I don't think any progress should be years worth of.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And you'll see changes within weeks. You'll absolutely, of course you will, because when you start to make changes, life will give you changes. When you're just sitting in avoidance and management, and again, management is something that we do need. When we first were working with Atlas, I had to use management with him, otherwise he would have really nailed me.
Yeah, that he would have. He definitely tried.
So, a muzzle is management. Yeah. But the point is that we have a goal to get out of management, not just be stuck in it forever. So I don't agree that a dog needs to be muzzled forever. That's, if we look at that as an interim situation, not a forever situation, because it's about state of mind. And those that meet Atlas in real life and see what a character reformation he's had. And so, the muzzle isn't necessary because his brain isn't in a place where it was before. That's really difficult to understand unless you've experienced it, seen it, and witnessing it with your own dog, the changes. And so obviously, we've done this tour, we've done a few retreats, and our retreats are getting really good now because we're very picky about who gets so picky. Come on. So
poor Grace is like, oh no, so many hoops.
Yeah, and then the reason for that is that it makes our job a lot easier when you have people who've already worked within the realms of what we're talking about. Because if you came to us as a brand new person, you'd freeze and you'd be like a rabbit in the headlights. You'd go, "This is all foreign. I don't understand why we're speaking about brain."
Yeah. Why are we doing a whole lesson on neuroscience? Well, I think that's the beauty of having the online community, right? Is that there are definitely people that see a shiny reel and go, oh, great, that dog was there for a weekend. And it doesn't matter how many times you put into the caption, this is not a quick fix. This is not easy. You will still get people applying, go, I want to come on that residential. And then you come back and you say, oh, actually, to be able to join us on a retreat, what you need to do is these foundations and connect with one of our trainers and do this course so that you understand the language that we're talking. And it's so interesting because the reason that we're doing that is to give them a better experience. But you'll get the occasional person that'll be like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm not doing that. I just wanted to come along for 3 days and then you would fix my dog.
Like, yeah.
Oh, we live in a world now where everyone wants it like that. But unfortunately, it's not real life.
Yeah. Well, not everyone. Not everyone.
Sorry, not everyone.
And then, of course, you get the other side of that, which is, well, they must be doing something nefarious. Yeah. And why are you secretive? Why won't you tell people? Well, first of all, we do. It's, join Honest Hounds. It's all there. There's nothing secretive at all. In fact, many people have had success without even meeting us just by changing what they're doing. So, how does it make you feel when people assume that we've strung dogs up and we've put e-collars on and that dogs for bad behavior.
I think it's just unpicking the complete. I mean, it's crazy to me because there's so much evidence. And so my analytical brain goes back to, but how could you possibly think that when we've got hundreds and hundreds of people we met 300 people on our tour. We're doing workshops in all corners of England. How would we be doing that if there was this big undercurrent of awfulness? Like we wouldn't have people that stuck around. We've got members who you can go anywhere now. I can pop down to my dad's and be like, does anyone fancy a walk? And I'll have 10, 15 people join me who have been with us for anywhere from a day to since we began. The logic to me is just not there. It would not happen if we were on some kind of awful mission to abuse dogs. And so,
well, I feel like for us, we're kind of skirting away from dog training, but at the same time, we're trying to help people that are looking for dog trainers.
yes,
I've not identified as a dog trainer for quite some time now. No, because I don't think what we're doing. Yeah, well, and my ethos is that they're not our servants. We're not their masters. They don't have to listen to us just because we have them. They're not social tokens. They are sentient beings, and we know that.
She says,
That's a very nice time for you to too warm, too hot. So for giving dogs autonomy, it sounds bizarre, doesn't it? It sounds like we just let them do whatever they want. Yeah, and so you have to come and see, right? You have to come and learn what we're talking about, Honest Hounds, which is you can have it both ways. You can have a partnership with the human too. I think you and I have got it. You find the balance of what both needs are. You learn how to communicate effectively, and you don't boss people around.
well, you understand that there's going to be situations where one of you will take a different role and you'll constantly tweak and understand things. And
well, that comes nicely into the social rank. So one of the things that we talk about that's probably controversial is hierarchy and dominance. Yeah. And it's so interesting to see it from sociology and to move it into the dog realm, because everyone who does our course goes, oh my goodness,
make complete sense. Yeah, no one else talking about this.
Of course it does. That people are too frightened to look at that. And I also think one of the things that we do is bring sciences together. So we are bringing in different aspects to say, well, there's logic in lots of places, and we're not going to just be sticking into behaviorism. And behaviorism lets us down, I think. We're not. I don't think people are aware. So what's really ironic as well is you'd said to Noni, who you found me through all those years ago, that you didn't want another behaviorist.
Well, during the middle, like down low one, I was like, I need something different. I tried that. I need something that's completely different. And
the sad thing is that we're hearing the same story over and over.
Yeah.
So if people need trainers or surface behavior changed, that's great. It's going to work for them.
Yeah.
And if they've got deeper level stuff, they're going to need an approach that's thinking about a state of mind, and that's both the human and the dogs, and not just let's throw some obedience and make it do stuff for us,
or go the other way and avoid everything, because if we don't see it, it's not there.
Yeah, and sadly, but this is what the science is telling us, that if we avoid the stressor, the dog will be happier. But that isn't logical either. So I often use my little analogy of if you were if you had a spider phobia, so arachnophobia, and I put you into a enclosed room that was soundproof and airtight, and you were in this room, hopefully not claustrophobic. It's big enough, Eva.
You're like, it's fine. Netflix is there. It's good.
So it was a lovely time, and there's no spiders in this room. Are you suddenly not frightened of spiders? You're still thinking about the spiders beyond the room. They still exist. And a dog has got reactivity, and let's for the moment allow ourselves to label it anxious about dogs.
Mm-hmm.
As a whole other podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But let's for a moment label it. This dog has got anxiety about dogs. It has the triggered reaction, it's emotional response when it sees or hears a dog. Suddenly, we assume that if we just don't go to your dogs, that's not there anymore. But it's not true. The dog's still in an apprehensive mode about when it's going to come around the corner next. You might never see another dog for 10 years, but that dog, every time it walks out the door, is still having and still thinking in an apprehensive state. And so it affects other parts of his life. And if we could just grasp that concept, we could start to go, it's not about the dog, that other dog. It's not about the trigger. It's about the state of mind. And that's what we're focused on. We're focused on state of mind, which is why we incorporate play and neuroscience and handling and
diet and hormones and all the things,
all the fun thing.
socialization. Well, and I think we've got case study upon case study, right? This is the beauty of having an online space with so many different members from so many different walks of life, is that we've seen it. And so we've got the evidence, we've got the actual people. And I think as you're telling that story, so many people come to mind. But Elsie, they'd obviously had the suggestion of, if we avoid it, they were suggested to have decompression time. So 2 weeks where she didn't even leave the house with her. And the idea is that, well, actually she's getting overstimulated leaving the house. So if we have this break in time where the dog can quote unquote decompress, then they're gonna
Suddenly magically be great.
yeah. Or I assume the theory is that the stress levels would come down so that then it would be safe.
And this is coming from people who are not understanding that how your HB axis is working in the body. So you can't just suddenly avoid something and then have everything be fine. That's like if you have a traumatic event happen in your life and you never have another traumatic event, suddenly the first traumatic event will be fine. So you have I'm thinking of a real life incident, which was a gunshot that happened, and a client that I'd worked with, I'd seen a red car just before the gunshot. Everyone freaked out, hit the deck. Yeah, a really traumatic event. So she was fine, but her brain, when it saw a red car, put her into that, heart race state of anxiety, and remembered that the red car was the trigger.
Yes,
that's what happened in the sequence of events.
And brain has to go make sense of it somehow. It must have been that thing.
Yeah. So it wasn't about the gunshot, right? So she never hears a gunshot again.
Yeah.
She doesn't see red cars, and she's still seeing cars. So her brain's looking out. So even if she doesn't see a red car ever again, her brain, that part of her brain is still in that survival mode of vigilant. What color is that? What color is that? What color? Yeah, the hypervigilant state, which means that you never return down to a baseline of normal cortisol levels. You're always just up a little. Well, and I think more, and most of the dogs that we meet, up a little bit more and surviving there.
Yeah.
And so is the owner. And so I think that when you're mentioning Elsie and you're mentioning staying away from these triggers, not only are you putting the dog in a hypervigilant state, you're putting the owner in a hypervigilant state. So you've got two stressed animals that are just being. Actually, what happens as well is you're affecting their connection.
Yeah.
Their relationship is suffering.
Well,
even though you're staying away from all triggers.
Yes, and it goes beyond that because it's the knock-on effect too, right? So what then happens? This is a dog that doesn't get walked for 2 weeks. We've got a drivey breed who loves to play, who we can't do that because it'll arouse her too much. And then we've got increasing behaviors. So then they started to see other problems pop up, and they got a dog that hasn't got its needs met. So we're more likely to be destructive. We're more likely to then have issues with humans because we haven't got the tolerance for anything anymore. And so what we think is, oh, well, it's so kind of nice to keep the dog away from this potential trigger for 2 weeks. We then end up 2 weeks later in a completely worse situation with an owner that's even more confused because I did the thing that you said and now I'm in a worse place. And so it just doesn't feel very fair. But the other side of that is I feel like, I guess like anyone does, we're kind of here going, we're here to help, but there's actually some people who are going, oh, but the safety is all that I know, and therefore what you're saying is a threat because it's different.
Yeah, and then obviously uncomfortable for us to go, this entire time that you have habituated yourself to avoiding the trigger, we're now going to say, we're going to just work on this.
Yeah.
Once the dog's in a different state of mind, and we're going to help the dog to move into that different state of mind because we know how. And so that's very scary. That's the unknown. Anything could happen.
Well, and I think that I've been there in that headspace as well. And your brain is really good at going, even if we didn't even see a dog, if we had, it would have been terrible. Like I rang Sean once and I was like, I just saw a dog in the distance and it would have been awful. And Sean was like, voice of reason, far too logical, but it didn't come anywhere near you. And I'm like, no, but if it did, like my heart was racing, my head was pounding, all this, and that's your hypervigilance. That's your survival state that you're living in because of being told to the this is going to be awful. Yeah, it's going to be terrible.
The dog's also in it. We can't see that. Dog's just getting by.
Yeah.
So how do we know if we're not in that? Because you've been in it and didn't know you were in it.
I've been in it and I didn't know. How do we know?
Well, the dog's easier to start off with. So what do we see that we didn't see back then with Atlas?
Typical dog behaviors. Sniffing.
And this is reality. Dogs that we work with. But yeah, great example to you.
Yeah, and I think a looseness and
in the body.
Not there.
Tension.
Yeah, I think that he was walking around always edgy, always waiting for something to happen. And actually, He was holding his shit together, but I knew that. And so even if I wasn't consciously able, like there was a reason I wasn't letting strangers touch him. There was a reason that I didn't want him to go anywhere near another dog. So even back when I was still being silly and not using a muzzle and still trying to put his lead on and not realizing that that might be a problem, somewhere in my
going into this is
exactly, even if I wasn't willing to verbalize it, because there was definitely a period where I was like, I can't put this into words because that would be awful.
So let's take you then
Mm-hmm.
and Atlas now and put you together.
Okay. Oh God. He would regress back to the dog that he was, because everything about me was panicking. I wouldn't let him, like, he wouldn't be able to have the socialization and the exposure that he now loves,
So he'd regress because you wouldn't have the skills.
or the confidence,
Right, okay.
and I would go back to avoidance. So that version of me was avoiding everything. So rather than having a dog that was allowed to have autonomy, which is what we've created for him, and a dog that has resilience, it would not take long, because unfortunately I know how pathways work. It would not take long for him to go, well, you are being really weird about this, so maybe I'll be weird about this, and oh, it must be that situation, or why am I not allowed to be around my own?
So he's reading it all the time, and yeah. Okay, I don't want you to get too emotional. But now, like, let's take you now. Okay, and give you Atlas then. What would you?
Roll my sleeves up.
How would you? What do you look at the dog and what do you?
Well, I would feel very sad for that dog. But I think that the beauty of it is I have the answers now. And so the hardest part at the time, and I think you see this on the journey with a lot of our members, is the absolute brilliance is when you get to the point where you go, the thing doesn't matter, it's how I respond to it. And I know that whatever is thrown at me now, I have a toolkit full of things that I can do.
And that's why I say the work becomes so human-centered. We've got 2 counselors on board.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much about, it's not even if like you've been through trauma, but it's traumatic having a dog that needs to be that level of management. Even if it's just resource guarding, you're having to constantly be aware, and the management is the brain management, right? You know, what's the dog doing right now? And I have to do it with Tristan, even though he's fine. You know, like yesterday we were. He was wanting to play with everybody, and we're packing up tents. So people were like, "Oh, we'll play with him," and they threw the frisbee over a tent. So he didn't just go round the tent; he went over someone's tent that was sleeping in the tent. So no,
get him alley, they said.
Yeah, and people aren't aware of that. I'm aware of it, that he'll go through things, but people aren't aware. So I'm having to kind of be like, not switch off and shut on. So yeah, there's a certain level of hard work that comes with having to manage these special dogs.
Well, I think it's even beyond that, is you've then got social media and all the millions of voices and opinions out there. You've got the underlying Disney dog, which definitely lives rent-free, I think, in the back of our head. So I had to grapple with, well, I bought this dog.
You've got a Disney dog now?
I got 2. About my golden retriever's been a pain in the bum. It's just fine. There's somewhere unconsciously you're going, but I got this dog as a puppy, so this shouldn't be reality. I must have done something. This must be a me issue. This must be...
Well, it's still the public narrative, isn't it? Knowing bad dogs, bad owners.
Yeah. Well, exactly, right? And then, so then you know that, oh my goodness, if your dog accidentally barks at another dog, well, are you going to be publicly harassed for that, and all the layers that come with it? So we're no longer dealing with even the isolated incident. It's, oh, well, I follow 4,000 people and no one else's dog bites them, even though that's not reality, because they were all messaging me going, hey, I'm not sharing it, but my dog bites too. But your reality is what you become around. And that's why I think it's so damaging that we've got these echo chambers of the internet where everything is moderated and everything is, well, if you don't play by our rules, you can't even share your thoughts and opinions here, because how do you know there's nothing else out there?
Very toxic.
And actually what becomes something that Jess Williams, again, she knew deep down it wasn't working. But if you've got hundreds of people saying it'll just take a little bit longer, it'll just be another year until your dog can be in the same field as a dog, you see what you see, and that becomes your narrative. So why would you then start questioning it when everyone's telling you just a bit longer? Whereas actually, if we take a step back, we go, poor dog hasn't lived a life for 2 or 3 years, and that's absolutely fine. Everyone has a choice, but there are people out there who are going to want a different reality. And for me, short-term stress for a long-term life where they can have the best time is far more.
Well, the people that are condoning these methods haven't managed to achieve it themselves.
Well, therefore it can't be done.
can't be done. Resource guarding can't be fixed. Separation anxiety is just a lifetime management. So this is my big disagreement, that you're learning from people who can't do it themselves and just manage their own dogs. So this is the bit where I, and genuinely I'll say it. So let's go back to the Atlas new analogy. Now you're at where I'm at and you meet these dogs. So, I'm meeting Atlas, and my problem is, I know what to do, but I don't know if this human's going to be able. Yeah. So the amount of pain and sadness sometimes, but equally, don't get me wrong, a huge amount of joy working with Honest Hounds clients, and it's just phenomenal having the retreats happen and in a short space of time. It literally, we actually had Grace go on holiday, didn't we? She saw them on a Friday, and they all come and they're like anxious and what the hell's going to happen, and the dogs were like, oh, was it the worst? Yeah. And then she met them on the Sunday when she came back, and she was like, she actually said to them, wow, these are different people. Why are you all like smiling and having your dogs together and being all chill? This is amazing. Because they played the whole weekend and they learned some stuff, and they went, we don't have to be that version of ourselves. Yeah. And as you said, it's not really about the dog or the dog's behavior anymore. It's then about how they approach it, handle it, and see it. And then they go, well, I was living in this different world, and now I've come out with that and I see things differently.
And I think it's that, for anyone that's listening and still listening along, it's be curious. I think the best thing that I had with you was that I could ask the question and you had an answer. And so how can you dispute that, right? We're literally sat here saying we're an open book. We have a whole community
of lots of villains when you meet the dogs. It's really hard to let an outlet escape how cheeky and naughty they are. And friendly. And also we go so many places that you see the consistency. Right?
Well, and that's the bit, isn't it? It's not with nice curious, just ask those questions.
When they came up to the retreat, and we had this random football team in front of us, and Atlas went to say hi. So we said, like, how do you think that?
Well, and I think that's the bit, right? And I think it's, if there's that kernel of doubt or question on what you're doing, is go and ask questions. It doesn't have to be us. We're not saying that we're the only option. There's other great people out there, but I think what we do really well is we create a space where the community would not stick around if there wasn't something to stick around for. That would not be a sensible use of their time. There is enough saturation out there, and everyone has an opinion. So be curious about why we have all of these people who've been here with us for years, who are being neutral walk leaders, who are sticking around and coming and joining the team and becoming trainers themselves as a
and not avoiding things
and avoiding
and embracing change.
Yeah, it's a nice place to live when you take a little bit of avoidance out of the situation.